Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Every day, millions and millions of trucks are on the road making deliveries. It's what makes this country and many other countries tick. We need that. We need those deliveries, especially even with things like Amazon. We've added more vehicles to the road. How do you ensure that those vehicles are safe, especially those big tanker trucks, the big rigs, the 18-wheelers? This gentleman handles that. He works with the companies that dispatch those trucks, the motor carrier companies, and helps them make sure that they're riding safely. His company is DOT Training Solutions. Matt Freeman is back with us. We're going to talk about brakes, so essential in any vehicle. Now take that, multiply it by millions, and put it on a 80,000-pound vehicle. Wow, we have a challenge here. It's all about the safety first. And Matt, great having you back here. How you doing?
Hey, it's awesome. Been an awesome run here. I thought we'd have an interesting topic today. They had a CVSA, Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, had where all law enforcement, just about all law enforcement to do commercial motor vehicles are a part of CVSA. And part of CVSA is with them, and they have Canada, Mexico, and U.S. That's the alliance there. So what they did was they had a one-day check in June, last month. And out of that check, the focus was on brakes. That was the primary focus. There's multiple things ways they do the check brakes. With that, so out of all those jurisdictions, they had 47 jurisdictions in the three countries that they looked at. And that's just different areas, of each country. So out of that day, they inspected 4,898 trucks.
Is this in all three countries added together?
All three countries added together.
Okay.
So one day, just under 5,000 vehicles were inspected. And those were inspections. So you're looking at which is a vehicle in this case. So out of those, we had 570 vehicles that were placed out of service on those days. Or with critical violations of some sort. Okay, those violations could have been cracked brakes, not ineffective brakes not working for whatever reason. They could have been multiple things here when you're looking at brakes. Just because you look at it, it looks like it's working, you still got to climb under and see what's going on. You got contaminated brakes. There's cracks and different voids in the brake as well that you got to make sure the brake is still working properly. There's worn brakes. There's certain amounts of the thickness of the brake has to be okay in order for it to be a good brake or a bad brake. Loose or missing brakes. It happens. Pads go flying off, get worn. There's all kinds of different things. I've seen some pretty crazy things, when I was in my years of doing that on a daily basis. So a lot of things there that they're looking for.
Even before we go, I'm interested to hear what the results of the inspection were. Mm-hmm. But before we go there, can you educate us in simple terms of how the brakes work? Because in my mind, some of it is air brakes, but I don't know how that translates to a traditional pad like we have on our cars. How does that all work?
Oh yeah, sure. So you have air brakes. They have electric brakes. Okay. So there's disc brakes. They all work differently. Okay. It just depends on the brake. And the mechanisms work pretty much just like a car does. Okay. Your everyday car. All right. You have the brake lines, your hydraulic brakes, when you push down, your electric brakes are all going to be automatic. Okay. Sure. Your air brakes, you got to have air. Okay. If you don't have the air, the brakes can't hold. So you got to have air and the lines to hold those brakes. Most of the brakes out there on the trucks are air lines. There are some electric brakes out there depending on the vehicles. But majority of everything that you see on the roads with your big trucks and trailers is going to be all air brake actuated. Okay. So key things are looking at there is leaking brakes, air leaks, you know, making sure the hoses are connected right. You know, when you go to hit those brakes, you know, the air lines are not leaking, so the brakes do hold. That's a big safety issue, which is a very popular one to find, you know, because those lines get worn. And if you don't, you know, cracked, chafed, you know, things like that underneath those wheels and axles, um, you know, when they're going down the road. If they're rubbing on something, you know, there's a lot of things that go into just brakes, not just the pad itself. So you're looking at many things just in that one small area, which is on the wheel.
So, do they all result in essentially those things called pads, even whether it's hydraulic, electrical, air, anything involved? Is that typically how even a big 80,000 pound rig stops?
Yeah. So if you're looking at your just a general brake, okay, they're going to have pads. They're going to be air controlled, okay, and yeah, that's what stops them. You know, you got a
Wow.
thick pad. You know, obviously they're a lot thicker than your normal everyday car.
Sure.
Okay. Um, and again, it depends on the style. There's so many different styles out there of what it is. But yeah, it's just those pads that are stopping that 80,000 pound vehicle. Right.
How does that work when, let's say, a driver is going to make sure that the brakes are sound, or somebody at the yard, at a motor carrier company, maybe does the maintenance or whatever. Are they regularly checking to make sure that the brakes are okay? What's the guideline? How often is that done?
Yeah, no, they should be. Before they leave the yard, that's part of what they're doing on the
Wow.
pre-check. They need to make sure, check the brakes. You're pumping on the brakes, make sure everything's working. You're doing a quick walk around to make sure nothing stands out. You know, again, on your walk around, your pre-check, they're looking at the wheels and tires, the brakes. You know, making sure nothing is leaking. You know, that's usually a standout. Something broken or leaking, um, cracked. If you can see through um, the wheel, if you have easy access, they're going to look at that.
Mm,
Uh, you know, but the big notice is going to be when they're going down the road. You know, depending on how they're braking, if something's locking up, you know, or heating up, they may or may not notice that. But if something's locking up, you know, you would hope that they feel the brakes locking up because tendency they'll start smoking. You ever gone down the road and see smoking brakes? Um, it's not common, but you do see it. It's because the brakes are either heating up or it could be a brake that's locking up on you,
mm.
and causing the wheel obviously not to turn. So there's a few different things that they really look at on it.
All right, let's go to the results. We had one day uh, break situation where there was inspection, 3 countries. Was this a planned inspection? Did carriers know that that was coming down, or it was just random, random date?
They set these throughout the year,
Okay.
you know, and they say, hey, this is going to be brake day. This is going to be a safety week. They give folks notice. Um, I look at it this way. It's kind of like the same thing as used to when I was growing up. You'd set up a DWI check. They'd have it over the radio. Hey, don't go down these certain roads
Mm,
because we're going, you know, or on these certain roads, we're going to be setting up, you know, DWI checkpoints, and you know, people still went down them. You know,
wow.
same way. No matter, there's always going to people be out there. You know, even if you let them know. It just happens that way.
All right.
Let's see here. So some of the things I've found here. Looking at results. And there's another really cool device that they use out there on how how they test the brakes, make sure they're working, operating appropriately. So here in the U.S., we had, it looks like, see, there's 3,859 Level 1, 4, and 5 vehicle inspections. These are roadside inspections that they do, which related to no breakout of service violations. So they had violations, but just not out of service. Okay. On 3,411 of those commercial motor vehicles, violations, let me rephrase that. Out of 3,859, there was 3,411 without violations.
Okay.
Now, 448 of those commercial motor vehicles were placed out of service. And that, that's from cracked wheels, brake pads, just depending on what was actually going wrong with it. That was in the US.
Oh,
That was just
wow.
US. That was just
Wow.
US. So Canada, the results here, and this is all online results here off the websites. Conducted 1,021 inspections, and then they had 117 placed out of service.
Hmm.
So again, it can multiple things. A lot of the could have been lining and pad violations, like we talked about.
Sure.
Mexico conducted 18 level inspections, and 5 of them were placed out of service.
What was the total number again?
So Mexico did 18 roadside inspections on brakes and had 5 of the 18 out of service.
Hmm.
So if you look at that, that's 27% right there.
Yeah. And even with the United States, I'm just rolling the numbers here. It's sounding like it's about the same 20 something percent taken out of service, within a few points here and there. Canada, about the same. I'm trying to go back to their numbers now.
Yeah, no, so Canada, if you're looking at percentages, okay, what was placed out of service? So so go to Canada. So Canada, out of their 1,021, 11.5% was placed out of service, which was 117
Right.
vehicles. Okay.
Hmm.
US was real close to, even though we did more inspections, the 448 came to 11.6% out of service out of the 3,859 that they inspected. So obviously, traffic with trucks was heavier that day in the US than Canada or Mexico, depending on where they were setting up their shop, or their inspection shops to do the inspections those days. One of the really interesting tools that we can use, we're talking about technology. We've talked about technology past on what the drivers use, what types of different things that they can use for preventive measures. They have out, and there's only a handful of jurisdictions in the US that use this device. That's called a PBBT. It's a performance-based brake tester system. And and what this machine does is it sets down, like it looks like a portable scale. It sets down on the ground. The truck and trailer roll up over the top of it, and then it spins the wheels. It has a device that goes through it, and that will test how well those systems are working. It's a very interesting machine. So it's going to tell you, it's going to talk about the performance of that brake and how effective that brake is. So they can use these to verify how well the brakes are working on these big rigs. Pretty unique. I don't have a picture of one, but if you get a chance to look up performance-based brake testers, it's a really interesting system on how they can use it. It's portable. It's large. Like I said, they tow it behind a trailer. They drop it down, set it up at an inspection site, and then the truck rolls up over the top of it. So you can tell it's not a little system of a truck tractor rolling over the top of it.
So is that something that's obtainable or attainable by, let's say, a motor carrier so they could do their own tests on a regular basis?
Sure, they could.
Hmm.
They were, just no different than some big companies. They have their own scales. You weigh
Right.
before you pull off. I mean,
Right.
yeah, no difference. It's how much money they want to spend on the equipment that they're using. Is really
Right.
what it comes down to.
Hmm.
Uh, an interesting thing that the ones that were using here, out of 88 inspections uh, that were conducted on the PBBT machine, 4.5% of them failed uh, to meet the criteria that's required to pass them.
Wow.
So these machines are programmed with the out of service rate and what the guidelines are in those machines, and they can't they can't break below 43.5%. So that's how the machine knows where the brakes are.
Hmm. And
Um,
what's the repercussion? Vehicle taken out of service, or a number of them. Well, different companies, right?
yeah,
Um, what were there fines imposed? Is that typical? And we have three different countries here. So how does that all work?
yeah. I mean, I'll speak for the U.S.
Right.
Um, so each jurisdiction can set their own penalties and fines for per violations. Uh, so if it's however the state has it set up with the highway patrol or individual jurisdictions, but that's how it's set. Kind of like a traffic ticket in sense,
Sure.
depending where you are, the ticket may be higher or lower, depending on what the infraction is. The same way with any of these. So obviously, if you have an out of service, um, it may be a higher penalty,
Hmm.
fine because of that. The key thing is when they have these, they put a vehicle out of service. There's a few things that come with that. Either the vehicle has to be towed away, so there's an expense there on the carrier.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. Um, the other expense is, having a mechanic come out, roadside mechanic come out and fix it. So you get second expense right there. So it really depends on um, how bad of shape uh, after the inspection that trailer's really in. If it's allowed to move, without being towed, can it safely be escorted to a safe area, to get fixed, depending on the judgment of that officer, on what he deems it being
Sure.
safe to move. So yeah, there's some expenses that come to it. And on
And
top of that, go
I
ahead.
know, I think I know where you're going. Go ahead.
And on top of that, it affects the scores for the companies.
Yep.
So every time they get a roadside stop, that's another inspection on their record. So yeah,
Of which we identified last time or a couple of times
uh-huh.
back that that is public knowledge, at least in the US. And
Yes,
guess we can't forget about the fact that the vehicle was most likely carrying cargo. And what happens with that? It doesn't arrive at its destination, or
that's
you
right.
have to send out another vehicle. How are you going to send out, let's say you're cross country, how are you going to send out another vehicle to meet up with that vehicle wherever it is now, get that cargo? Now, maybe you have to go to another company to pick it up, to get there on time, whatever it is.
Yeah, multiple things. Let's say it's the truck tractor. It's out of service. Okay, so the rig's out of service, but the trailer's still good. They could bring in another driver and truck,
Okay,
right, to pick up the trailer and move it. Um, if it's a trailer, they may have to offload the depending on what the violation is, they may have to offload the trailer onto another truck and take it across, to destination. There's
sure.
multiple expenses here when
Yeah.
any vehicle is shut down. You're right. The product's not getting there. Money's time, and time is money when it comes to driving. And that's all getting our products to our customers every day, versus who it is or what the product is.
Yeah. And I didn't even consider that the braking issue could be with the rig, not the trailer, or vice
Mhm.
versa, whatever it might be. So then you have that. So yeah, there's a lot of dynamics involved here, and the expense is just adding up.
Yeah, this is not an inexpensive industry. It's a very expensive industry to be in. Um, when it comes to maintaining just the maintenance on the vehicles.
Hmm.
Uh,
Can you imagine if it's a refrigeration unit?
yeah, yeah. I have experienced some a couple of times in my life where refrigeration units have gone out, and you
Wow.
stopped a vehicle and you've had some pretty bad odors coming out of the back of those vehicles because, transporting bad meat, not doing this, not doing checks, not doing inspections, not paying attention.
Right.
That's why it's so important.
How does this reflect on the driver?
Well, it depends. If there's no violations on the driver, then it doesn't reflect on him at all. It just goes on the vehicle.
Would it, and well, let's look at it, and this goes back to a few podcasts. Is he responsible to make sure the vehicle is sound before he
Yes,
gets in? So
yes.
it just got pulled over. It was this random check last month. Vehicle has violations, brakes, major issues, leaking air, not working right, whatever it might be. Is it go on his record that he's driving it, or is it all on the company?
No, it'll show him as the driver of the vehicle, but it goes back to the company.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah. So if you're driving a vehicle and it's we're driving ABC Trucking Company's rig and I'm going across the country and I get stopped and my vehicle has multiple violations on it for whatever, many things, and it's placed out of service and it sits there. Okay. When you go back in and look at those inspection reports, no, it's not going to show names typically, for the public, but it will show when you go in and look at your profile, you can log in, you'll see the driver for the truck, you'll see the truck and the trailer, and you'll see all the violations. Now, if it was, even if it was the driver, say I'm over hours and I have logbook issues, put me out of service. Well, does that show on mine? It shows on the same report. Driver was placed out of service. That's the record you see, but it doesn't go on your personal record. No.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah,
uh,
I wonder, final thought here, if there was more accountability by the driver or there's more responsibility, that maybe there would be less violations because he doesn't want to have it on his record or be fined or something taken away from him. I don't know. Great territory. Volatile question, I guess.
yeah, no, no. So, in sense, um, so here's how that works. So, it is this responsibility of the driver to do the check on the vehicle before he takes off. You got to pre-check. Okay.
Sure.
It is his responsibility. It's also the driver's responsibility to note his post trip if there's any issues. All right. So that's the vehicle responsibility for him to make sure everything looks good. He's the one that signs off and says, "Hey, this is a good inspection or a bad inspection." All right. If there's issues discovered, it's his job to write down on an inspection, like we've talked, to turn that in and make sure those get fixed before redispatched.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So now, but if you have a driver now here's where the accountability comes in. If you have a driver, he's considered a red flag driver. Okay. So he has many stops where he can't get his logbooks right. He's constantly getting wrote up. Now he will flag in the system.
Hmm.
Okay. So now that means whenever someone from enforcement goes in and looks him up as a red flag driver, they're going to focus on that driver. Okay. So depending on all the issues that they find on that one driver, now, like we talked about before, that driver can have a case and penalty go against him.
Got it.
Okay. But that's on the DOT side of the SMS and the report side of things, but not on his driver's license particular.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So
And then
things
there
that
are, yeah,
on his license, I would imagine it would be things like substance abuse.
it would be speeding tickets
Yep.
for, say, your road violation, things like that. That will go against the driver. That's on
Sure.
your license.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're out of time, Matt. Eye
Oh,
opener
wow.
today on what's going on here. I didn't think we would be able to talk this entire time about brakes and inspections, but that illustrates how important it is, what's going out there, and why safety is paramount, especially the braking system. And this is what you do in making sure these companies adhere to the regulations, or at the very least be aware of what's going on within your company, DOT Training Solutions. How do we contact you? If somebody has questions about this, maybe they're a company that's dealing with violations, maybe they're working with another safety company that's not cutting it. How do they connect with you?
Yeah, a couple ways. You can go to our website, dottrainingsolutions.com. Plenty of things on there to get information, to get a hold of us, different things that we can offer. We have our 800 number there, and then we also have our info at DOT Training Solutions. You can look us up. You can always give me a call or email me. It's Matt at dottrainingsolutions.com, or you can reach me at 573-416-8203. That's my direct line. It goes straight to me. And we're here to help you. If I'm not available, we have many experts on our team that can work with any of our customers and clients.
Yeah. And even with that, you even go to other countries like Mexico to offer them advice, inspection, even during the design process, the manufacturing process. Thank you for what you do, because I know when I'm driving out there with my family or not, I want to make sure that what's around us is safe.
Yeah, you can't be safe enough, no matter how safe you are. Being very proactive in my world means a lot and makes a big difference.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being here today, Matt.
Right. Hey, thanks, Steve. Talk to you soon.
Yep, we'll be right back.
All right.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.